From the beginning, George W. Bush has been ridiculed for his speaking style. He jokes about it himself. So it's a bit of a paradox that he's now also credited with some of the most eloquent and visionary speeches ever delivered by an American president. Along the way, the president has been uniquely willing to acknowledge the work of speechwriters. He let our cameras in as they raced to complete the final draft of his last State of the Union address.
We need broad to be interest abroad, because that all applies.
Bill McGurn is the president's chief speechwriter.
I don't think we need
Mark Thiessen and Chris Michel are on his team. They have been working on the State of the Union for the better part of the month.
Maybe we can take some of the notes you have down. These 15 pages are the most edited 15 pages in the United States in any year. I mean, it's all goes contrary to the rules of good writing. You have 30 people having a say on it, and we're the filter. It all comes through us.
And they will keep at it as long as the changes keep coming.
What will happen is we'll now get a draft with these edits, and we'll work all the staffing comments into it, and then we'll send a new draft to the president, and then he'll give us his comments. We'll have editing sessions with him, and then at some point he'll say he's ready to go to the teleprompter.
McGurn, a veteran of the Wall Street Journal and National Review, says he's never had a more exacting boss than President Bush.
I've been edited by Bob Bartley and Bill Buckley. The president is by far, the most thorough and sharp editor, and I've had a lot of editors. Do we need the many products now enter America duty-free at our products face?
Well, that's what makes the case for why it's
fairness argument.
I think at this point, a lot of the president's agenda is pretty well set. He's been dealing with big issues throughout the course of his presidency. He's a very forward-looking person. He always has something he wants to accomplish.
Do you look to any president, prior president, as an example of how to go into your last year?
Well, I look at a lot of presidents. Abraham Lincoln, for example. I suspect Abraham Lincoln's approval rating wouldn't have been very good during the Civil War. 600,000 people died. And yet Abraham Lincoln never lost sight of the moral truth that all men are created equal under God.
The president brought up Lincoln again in a completely different context as he drove me around the ranch. When you look back over this time, is there one thing that you're most proud of?
I guess the thing I'm most proud of right now is the fact that my little girls are contributing adults, that they've survived the presidency. Barbara and Jenna have really grown up in a way that makes me very proud and makes Laura proud as well. You asked me about presidents, and I've spent a lot of time on Lincoln. He had a very tough presidency. He lost his son, Willie. His wife Mary Todd Lincoln, was not a happy person. And must have been a real strain on him to be president. His soul was troubled. But he never lost faith in some basic values, and that's a very impressive lesson.
Is that how you feel?
I don't feel anguished. I'm joyous. I haven't lost a child, and my wife is happy. I guess is the point I was trying to make. Yeah. And it makes a big difference.
President Bush, when we talked to him, brought up Lincoln.
Yes.
And historical perspective. Does he talk about that with you?
He talks about it all the time. If you're standing in the Oval Office and you recognize the trials and tribulations that America has gone through by presidents that have sat in that chair, realize that the occupant of the Oval Office has to be someone who believes that these principles are universal and that these principles are always going to triumph.
So this is Lincoln bedroom.
It is. It is the Lincoln bedroom, although Lincoln didn't use it as a bedroom. This was his cabinet room. And it was right here that he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It was in this bed, they say, that Lincoln laid his son Willie when Willie died. It's interesting to be a sitting president and spend time in this room contemplating one of the great predecessors.
You identify with him?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't want people to think that somehow I think I'm Lincoln, or, thinking about the Lincoln presidency keeps my own life in perspective, proper perspective.
You've been a wartime president longer than Lincoln was.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously different times, different circumstances, but How do you think you've done?
In terms of how I've done, history just takes a while to figure it out. One of the interesting lessons of Lincoln is that, there's no such thing as accurate short-term history. I'll show you what I mean. Right over here is the Gettysburg Address. He wrote 5 handwritten copies, and this is one of them. You can see how brief it is, and when I was a kid, I memorized it. When he gave this speech, it was wildly panned, and the critics got all over him because he didn't spend enough time honoring the dead. So when he passed away, he had no earthly idea that the address he had given at Gettysburg would be memorized by future presidents as one of the great presidential addresses ever.
Though George W. Bush insists historians will need decades to assess him as president, he'll say right now that the principles on which he's acted will stand the test of time. And he spoke of his freedom agenda in the same context as Lincoln's moves to bring an end to slavery in America.
Lincoln based his decisions on a fundamental moral truth. All men are created equal under God. I believe the principle or the fundamental moral truth that there is a God, and a gift of that God to every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth is freedom, is the same type of principle. So I guess there's a commonality between Lincoln's decision on freeing the slaves, because all men are created equal, and the desire of me and other presidents to liberate people from the bondages of tyranny.
This was obviously his best speech. What do you think yours was?
I don't know. I think some of the important speeches would be the speech at the National Cathedral after the September the 11th attacks, and then the speech to Congress rallying the nation after September the 11th. And I think the second inaugural speech was an important speech. It's a speech that kind of planted that flag firmly in the ground that said America must stand for freedom and must end tyranny. And it'll be a call to other presidents. And to me, it's the right call for this country.
And that leads into the next what we already had.
It's a call President Bush would make again in his final State of the Union address.
The goal is to have the right policy in elevated language that is in the president's voice.
Supporting democracy in important neighborhoods.
I don't know that we could fit all of it.
I like this end, keeping this ending here.
Yeah.
I like this.
So tonight, with confidence in freedom's power and trust in the people, let us set forth to do their business. God bless America. It's a great world. I'm not kidding.
You gonna miss it?
Oh yeah, you got to miss it. Imagine my life is, this is unbelievably exciting to be the president during this period of time, and it's such an honor. And I think any president would say they'd miss it.
That's our show for tonight. There's a lot more on the web. Extended interview.
I'm not a crook.